Welcome to Why Knowledge Matters. A prolific writer, Professor Dr. Stanley Uche Anozie teaches philosophy in addressing contemporary philosophical, ethical, religious studies issues from a cosmopolitan and multicultural perspective. Trained in theology and philosophy in Italy, Germany, and Canada, he writes extensively from philosophy to international development. His most recent book, Hans-Georg Gadamer and African Hermeneutic Philosophy, published by Generis Publishing in 2020.
It's an interesting point of reflection. Hermeneutics is all about interpretation. Hermeneutics is about having dialogue and being able to understand what the other is trying to communicate or trying to say to you. So it's all about meaningfulness. It's all about understanding. It's all about discussion. Hermeneutics is, for me, the most important aspect of philosophical thinking, because we are not just thinking beings, we are communicating beings. When you speak and the other person doesn't hear or understand, then there is no communication. And so when we, so to say, communicate, then we have given meaning to the other, and then the other understands you. As long as there is understanding, then there is dialogue. And if there is dialogue, then there is a common platform, there is a common value system, if I may put it that way, and then it will give birth to peaceful coexistence. Well, as a student of philosophy, some years ago, of course, I was fascinated by this idea of understanding the other as the basis of peaceful coexistence with other people. So if you don't understand the other, then the other person becomes, so to say, a stranger, like they say in German language, Ausländer, or an alien, like we say in America. So the point is, through hermeneutics, through discussions, we begin to listen, appreciate, understand, and be able to interact with people around us. And that, like I said, will be the basis of coherent existence and peaceful experience of life. One of my first projects was on the colonialism as the bane of African development. So I wanted to understand, how did that contribute to the problem of development within the African world and African people? And so during that research, I was able to come to the conclusion that the colonialism as a project takes away the ability to be able to politically decide for your well-being. So I consider that as the ultimate right is not just human right, it is political right. The right to be able to decide for yourself, the right of self-determination. And so through colonialism, the African people lost this consciousness of being able to decide for themselves about their well-being. And so that is actually what got me fascinated about hermeneutics. Another thing is within the dimension of religion. Like in one of my works, I wrote something about African Christianism. You may call it African Christianity. So I felt that when I conducted the research, I'm able to understand that the indigenous African traditional religions were neglected or rejected, so to say, such a way that Christianity was rather imposed using the agency of colonialism on the African people. And so my concern is, I find that the African people are no longer able to understand even Christianity, one point. The second point is that they are unable to understand themselves. So, which is what someone like Hannah Arendt, who is also good with hermeneutics, will call alienation. When you are alienated from yourself. And remember, like I pointed out about hermeneutics, it's about understanding oneself, and it's all about communicating oneself. It's all about being heard. It's all about understanding the values and the ideas that you want to present, or the ideas that you are articulating in relation to who you are, your well-being, and your environment of existence. So again, when I was looking at my research as a young philosopher, I felt that colonialism took away this ability to have authentic relationship with the self as it relates to non-revealed religions of the African world. Remember here, Christianity is considered as a revealed religion. And so at the end of the day, my conclusion is the African person has already had authentic relationship in terms of the divine, in terms of his or her religious consciousness, and so doesn't need to lose that and doesn't need to be converted. I'll give you an example. Like my middle name that you mentioned, Uche. Uche means God's will. So if you know about God's will, you don't need to be Christianized. You don't need to be converted. Again, it's all about hermeneutics. Because if the people who projected Christianity understood hermeneutics, they will know there is no need for converting the indigenous people from their religion, because that religion is a religion that identifies with the nature of their being. Another name that I may give us is like the Igbo word, Chimamanda, that my God will never fail. You see, the presence or the relevance of this concept, this theology of being aware of the supernatural. And that supernatural is the basis of the moral system of the African person. I'll give us another word, Ndokako. Life is more than wealth. So we are not possessing beings. It's not about the properties. It's all about integrity. It's all about dignity. So using all these names and their significance or meaningfulness, one can adduce that the African people or the Igbo people had a religion of awareness, a religion of self-consciousness, and a religion of their well-being. And I do think from using hermeneutics, one is able to make these relevant conclusions. First, the conclusions about political discussion or political right. And then second, the conclusions about the right to one's religious consciousness and awareness, rather than the conversion coming from Christianity and other major religions of the world. Hermeneutics is really important. For me, it matters because, like I pointed out, as long as we are living as social beings, we have to dialogue with one another, especially within the context of my reflection, which is the hermeneutics of African political belongingness. It is on this basis that we co-relate with one another, that we reflect on who we are, again, as social beings, as political beings, and how to get the best out of ourselves in order to accomplish our common good. And so when I talk about this hermeneutics and how it matters for the African people, I'm thinking about making the world a more of a cosmopolitan society in which we recognize other people's points of view and also understand what is relevant to making a global community work. Hermeneutics matters now as well as in the future, because look at what happened in the United States, I think last night. It's all about having a dialogue. It's all about being able to discuss. And in discussing, You recognize, first of all, the dignity of the other. You don't just discuss. You see, that is the very beautiful thing about hermeneutics. If you want to listen to the other, you are listening with the hope that the other has integrity. The other person has dignity, and the other person deserves to be listened to be heard. And you see, it sets the platform for mutual recognition, for peaceful coexistence and respect. And I so do think that hermeneutics is at the basis of political thinking. Hermeneutics is at the basis of moral philosophy. Hermeneutics, of course, is at the basis of metaphysics. Remember, metaphysics is about being what a thing is. But what a thing is cannot be understood if that thing is not talked about or discoursed, or like Martin Heidegger would talk about, to be revealed to the other person or disclosed. Certainly you would know that it is all about Hans-Georg Gadamer from the Western point of view. But from my African philosophical background, I will give it to Professor Pantaleon Irebu, and he wrote the book, one of the books that I really appreciated as a student, under his tutelage, Metaphysics, the Beam of Philosophy. Metaphysics, the Beam of Philosophy. Of course, my Professor Pantaleon Irebu has since passed away. But for me, as so to say, a student, a disciple, I would think that hermeneutics is the beam of political philosophy and political belongingness.